All right. So, welcome to our Tech Talk for today. We are going to be taking a look at podcasts, what they are, and how you can listen to them, why they've become super popular, especially lately. So, my name is Anne. I'm a technology trainer here at Heights Libraries. And this is one of the classes that we did offer in person when we were doing in person classes. But it's something that's really easy to adapt to Facebook Live. So we have done a series of these different tech talks and also our Appy Hour series. We're here every Wednesday afternoon at 4 p.m. Talking about all sorts of topics. Our technology or our Tech Talk series tends to focus on lectures, on kind of timely tech topics. So we've talked about how to spot fake news. We've talked about cutting the cord, how to stay safe online. We also have our Appy Hour series, which is a look at different apps that you can install on a smartphone or tablet. We'll actually talk about some apps today, so it's kind of a 2-for-1 today, Appy Hour and a Tech Talk. So we are going to talk about podcasts today, and looks like we've got some folks watching, so we can dive right in. All of these Facebook Live events are saved on the library's Facebook page, facebook.com/HeightsLibrary. So you can rewatch them, you can recommend them to friends and family, you can look back at all of the different series that we've already done. And these will also be archived on our YouTube channel as well. So if you're trying to recommend it to someone who doesn't have Facebook, you can check them out there as well. So, my name is Anne. I am a technology trainer, like I mentioned, with Heights Libraries. My coworker Jackie and I have been kind of alternating, going back and forth with who hosts these particular Facebook Live events. So you may hear her voice on some of these events. You may hear my voice on some of these events, but we trade them back and forth essentially. Now, to start out with, we'll start with a basic definition of podcasts. And that definition is a digital audio file made available on the internet for downloading to a computer or mobile device. I can't talk today. Typically available as a series, new installments of which can be received by subscribers automatically. That's kind of a long, confusing definition, so we can break it down a little bit. So, digital audio file. We can essentially think of podcasts as radio shows. Sometimes there is a visual component. There are a lot of YouTube videos out there, especially, or things that stream on Twitch that call themselves podcasts. But podcasts really rely on the audio component, not so much video. They are able to be viewed over the internet, on a computer, or on a smartphone. Like we mentioned, there are going to be some apps that we'll talk about. There are lots of different ways to follow podcasts, to get those regular updates, those subscriptions. And it is typically a series. If you were making just one episode, it wouldn't really be a podcast. It wouldn't really be a continuing series that people would be interested in listening to. It's just kind of your opinion then, and you could just post it on YouTube and be done. But it is a regularly updated series, generally around a specific topic. So that could be around true crime stories, that could be talking about the fashion industry, that could be talking about breaking news, that could be talking about video games. So they can take lots and lots of different forms, but they all have recurring episodes. How often they're updated is entirely up to the creator, but generally there's more than one episode with a podcast. So podcasts have grown in popularity in the last several years, probably the last decade or so, and there are several reasons why. A couple big ones is we've gotten used to just hanging out on Netflix, watching things on YouTube, just starting and stopping content whenever we want, listening to it or watching it on our own schedule. And radio isn't really designed for that. if you want to tune into Morning Edition on NPR, if you want to tune into other shows that you listen to on the radio, you kind of have to be in your car or in front of a radio at that exact moment. So in order to have that flexibility, a lot of publishers, a lot of people have started creating podcasts to get that kind of on-demand audience, make it more accessible to people as our lives have gotten busier and we've relied more on that kind of start and stop whenever we want content. Additionally, there are some other trends that have influenced the popularity of podcasts. It's also simply that we're kind of tired at looking at screens, especially right now when we are spending so much time. We're doing our schoolwork in front of screens, we're doing work meetings in front of screens, we're working from home, we're staring at our phones. It's nice to just be able to sit back and listen to something rather than have to be constantly engaged in looking at a screen. There is kind of an irony there that we're listening to them on devices that have screens, but it doesn't really require you to actively look at it. There's also a lot of production value from the publisher or producer standpoint. All you really need is a microphone and recording software, which you can find for free or very, very cheap out there on the internet. And you can create a podcast. So it is a very approachable medium for people who want to get their opinions out there. We also, of course, carry our mobile devices around with us everywhere, so that's a convenient way to listen. We don't need to, really the only radio I have access to is in my car. I don't have a radio at home, but I have my phone with me all the time. So I can listen to podcasts easily wherever I am with just downloading them, saving them on my smartphone. There also are a lot of influencers, a lot of people who've started podcasts and have become very prominent within the podcasting community. So My Favorite Murder, for example, is a very popular podcast that was started several years ago. They've grown into having their own podcasting network and being able to provide and support shows that they're interested in. So people have really branched out, created a whole career out of being podcasters. We also have found that podcasts, kind of like shows or video games or sports teams, have created communities. So My Favorite Murder, that I mentioned as well, they have a community of fans that are called the Murderinos. And there will be, back when we were having live events, there would be live events where you could watch the show be actually recorded. You can kind of bond with people over your shared affinity for a particular podcast. And there's also sort of an intimacy of just listening to it yourself, being kind of in your own little world, listening to it through your headphones and enjoying your podcast. So there are, like we've mentioned, several different ways to listen to podcasts. Podcasts are hosted on the internet, so they will need a website, some sort of web hosting, in order to function, in order to allow that regular upload or those updates to be sent out. So typically you can listen to that podcast through their website. You can also listen to them in a variety of different apps, so things that you can download onto your smartphone. We'll talk about a number of those in the next couple of slides, but these apps have an advantage of actually pushing out or indicating that there are new episodes, kind of keeping you up to date, kind of similar to how you might get breaking news alerts on your phone. They can notify you, hey, this podcast has a new episode, and you can potentially download it onto your device, so you don't need to use data to stream it when you're outside of your house too. So there are a number of different podcasting apps out there. Like I said, this is kind of a 2-for-1 tech talk, in that we're talking about apps and we're talking about a technology topic. And I should also mention, because I didn't say it at the beginning, if you have any questions throughout any of this, if you're curious about podcasts since that's our topic for today, or which app might work best for you, you can add that to the comments box on Facebook, and I will try and answer it. So if you've got questions, put them in the comments, and we'll try and answer. So there are a number of different apps that are available. A nice thing with these first couple of apps is they are available potentially on your phone right now. You just didn't realize it was there, or they're completely free. So the first one, our little purple icon, is Apple Podcasts. So this is available on all iPhone and iPad devices. It's already installed on your phone. You don't need to go out and look for it. If somehow you have uninstalled it or removed it, you can always find it in the App Store. But this is actually built in, integrated into your phone. Apple is one of the big kind of collections of podcasts, so it's a really good place to start if you're just getting started with podcasts. It's already there. You can check it out, try listening to things, see what's out there. And we'll take a look at some charts a little bit later on. They aren't up to date. I didn't get a chance to update them, but it gives you an idea of some of the topics that are out there that you might find in podcast form. Google Play Music actually has just been discontinued, but YouTube Music is Google's replacement. So that's also where you can find some podcasts. Google also has a completely separate podcasting app called Google Podcasts, well named, that is available for free through the Play Store. So you can check that out. It has a nice kind of minimal interface. It makes it pretty easy to search for things. So you can definitely check that out. There are also, the rest of these potentially have paid components, but they have a lot more features. They're really dedicated to a good podcast listening experience. And the first one, the first one in our next row, so that little RP, is Radio Public, which doesn't require you to create an account. You can just download it and start listening. The next one over, a kind of orange, I think that's a hexagon, is Castbox. So that has won a lot of Best of awards. So it's a well-regarded app that works on Apple devices and Android devices. All of these, other than the exception of our kind of top row, will be available for both Apple and Android devices. Now I need to turn my page. So our next one over is Spreaker, which is kind of a weird name. But it will give you suggested podcasts based off topics that you're interested in. So you can always find new things to listen to. So if your favorite podcast is on hiatus for a little bit, you can always find something to fill that void. There's also Pocket Cast. So that is the bottom left corner, kind of those semicircles. That is the most popular paid podcast app on the market. It's available for an in-app purchase. There's also Stitcher, which is another popular podcasting app. I think my car actually has an app that if I had Stitcher installed on my phone, it would be able to connect to it. That's another reason that these have become popular, is our cars are so connected that we can listen to podcasts as easily as we can listen to the radio, essentially. And finally, we have Spotify. Spotify, of course, is a music streaming service, but it does have a large array of podcasts. They've really been focusing on podcasts in the last couple of years, and that's actually how I listen to the vast majority of my podcasts. I already have a Spotify subscription, so I already have the app on my phone, so I'll just find the podcast on Spotify and listen to it there. So you can kind of one-stop shop for both music and podcasts. So our next slide, this is an example of some of the charts. So just like music charts or Netflix most popular list, podcasts have charts. They're the most popular ones, show up at the top. So the New York Times and NPR publish a ton of podcasts. I think NPR is one of the top publishers of podcasts. So you can get your news fix through those sources. There also are a lot of true crime podcasts as well. That kind of lends itself to podcasting because there's so many stories out there, and podcasting works really well for storytelling. Whether it's historical, whether it's, current events, or there are also podcasts that are fictional, that have created a whole sort of fictional world, kind of reminiscent to old school radio dramas. So things like War of the Worlds or things like that have kind of seen their successor in podcasts. One early-ish prominent podcast was Welcome to Night Vale, which was a fictional podcast that was kind of portraying itself as like a fake radio show, sort of. That's not a good description, but there are a lot of fictional podcasts out there. There are also a ton of sports podcasts, tech podcasts, pretty much anything you'd be interested in. There's probably a podcast for that. I've found podcasts for my favorite book series. I've found podcasts for knitting, for kind of exposés on fast fashion. So there's going to be a podcast out there for pretty much anything that you want to learn about or listen about. Now, how can you actually find podcasts? So you might hear people mention things, maybe on social media, or you hear people mention them in passing. You can, of course, go to your podcasting app. So you will want to search there to get subscribed. So you could use Apple Podcasts, of course. You could also use the Google Podcast app, or if you have Spotify already, you can search on there. You will want to search for it by name. We do have an example here. The library does have a podcast that's currently on hiatus, but you can go back and listen to older episodes of our Library Binary podcast, hosted by myself and my now former coworker, Elise. So we talk about a lot of things like this, podcasts, kind of current technology topics, so you can go back and listen to those. You don't necessarily need to pick up a podcast with the latest episode. You can go into its back catalog and listen to things that are older, kind of see previous episodes and build up to today, or you can jump right in and listen from today forward. So that is pretty much what we have for today. Podcasts have become a very popular medium. A ton of people make money off of them. And there's a lot of really good content out there in the form of podcasts. They're pretty easy to get started with. You just need to look up the website or find the podcast in the app and subscribe. And if you have any questions, you can put them in the comments box, like we mentioned. This will be recorded, so once I hit end live video, it will be saved and it'll be available on the library's Facebook page, along with all of our other tech talks and happy hour sessions as well. So you can go back and look at those, recommend them to friends and family. You can also check out our YouTube channel, where we have all of these as well. So if there are no questions, I guess we'll wrap up. Should also mention, in addition to the Library Binary podcast, which focuses on technology, we do also have a local history podcast as well. So you can check those out also through the library's website. If you go to heightslibrary.org, you'll be able to look under our services and find our 2 podcasts. So something to listen to while you're home, trying not to look at screens maybe quite so much. So with that, I will wrap things up. If you have any questions, you can put them in the comment box. Otherwise, I will I'll talk to you in the future. Thanks.